Nice. How you doing, Joe?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. It's funny, I sort of vicariously interviewed you for this already because I wrote all the EPK questions for this, but I didn't actually do the EPK interviews. But so I read the script quite a while ago, and I was desperate to see it, and it was even more incredible than I could ever have imagined it could be. I mean, I think we use words like masterpiece quite freely sometimes, but it really feels like The Brutalist is kind of deserving of such a title. You've been in your fair share now of movies. At what stage, as an actor, do you realize you're kind of sitting on something quite special? Is it right from the kind of script stage? Is it when you're on set, or sometimes is it kind of retrospectively when you sit down to watch it at a premiere?
Yeah, I think you never really know how anything's going to be received. I think with The Brutalist, I knew when I read it, which was back in 2019, I loved the script and it felt like something I hadn't come across before. It was incredible. It was big and old-fashioned and like rigorous and detailed, and it reminded me of everything from The Godfather to There Will Be Blood to Once Upon a Time in America, but it also felt completely singular and its own thing. And I was so impressed by the scope of it, and what it was trying to tackle, but also the intimacy of it. But all of that to say, you go on your gut because you love something, but you kind of never know what anything's going to be. I mean, it ticks so many boxes of what people aren't financing these days or aren't distributing these days, given the length, given what it's about, given the fact it's shot on film, given the fact there's an intermission, all things which I think make it great, but on paper aren't necessarily what people tend to put their money behind at the moment. So you just never know. So it's a lovely surprise that it's going down well.
Yeah, I was going to say because even when you're in something special, it must always take you by surprise when it's well received. Even if you know you're like, okay, this is quite good. The script was great. The direction was fantastic. I can tell it's going to look good. When the reviews start coming out and it starts winning awards and sort of in the mix for kind of awards, does it still always take actors by surprise? You're like, oh, you are actually enjoying it.
I guess, yeah, because you just never know. I mean, we went to Venice. It didn't have a distributor before. So we had no idea what was going to happen. And it wasn't until reviews came out and it got a good ovation there and a good reception that it was picked up. So we're kind of going in blind. And more so with this one than any other film I think I've been a part of. So it's been amazing to see, and I'm so happy that people are responding to it.
And obviously, the film, while kind of fictional, is so grounded in kind of reality. Was that quite freeing as an actor to have kind of reference points to help build the character, but not be kind of tied to something implicitly that you kind of had to honor?
Maybe, yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but perhaps particularly, I mean, for Adrian, certainly more than the rest of us. I mean, when I read it, I thought it was a biopic. It had that level of detail to it, but yeah, perhaps there is something liberating in the fact we're not trying to play real people, but it's so embedded in real times that we can research and that we do know about. It was interesting. I listened to something Adrian was saying, and he obviously having done The Pianist, it's a completely different character, but for his kind of research, he was able to carry what a character like that had come through. And it's not like that's a prequel to this in any way, but it was interesting hearing him talk about how he sort of knew mentally and physically what came before this film for him in a way. Yeah, yeah,
It's funny you mentioned, but because like the first thing I did when I sort of saw the film was check, is this based on a true story? But
right.
even on Google, when you start typing, is the Brutalist the first kind of thing is based on a true story? I think it just feels like a biopic. But I mean, you've been fortunate enough now to work with some incredible filmmakers. I mean, where does kind of Brady rank in that kind of the kind of amazing sort of collaborations you've had? Because he really does feel like one of the kind of important voices in modern cinema.
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, he's amazing, and I was a fan of his before anyway. I'd seen both of his previous films, Vox Lux and Childhood of a Leader, and um, it, every director I've worked with is very different. He certainly has something so unique. Sorry, I'm being blinded here, but so so special and singular, and he's so confident. I mean, perhaps because he'd written it so long ago and had been trying to make it for so many years, you felt when we finally got to set, he was so clear in what he wanted and needed to do, and because it was a relatively short shoot, he was against the clock, and so he almost shot it as it's seen in the edit, and seeing that level of kind of conviction and being able to put it together so clearly was so impressive.
I mean, 34 days I read was the shooting time, which is insane. I mean, is that quite, would you say that's almost preferable as an actor? Because it sounds quite daunting a prospect, but the idea of just kind of getting into it and just sort of going onto set and just kind of smashing it all out, is that something you quite enjoy?
Yeah, I guess there was an intensity to it. It's funny, it didn't feel too rushed, but I think also, but because he had to plan it, so I mean, you obviously have to plan any film you're making, but because this was like, I mean, the script's over, I think it was over 170 pages or something, and when you see it, I mean, the scope of it is so big. He had to know what he was doing, down to every small detail. But yeah, maybe the intensity of a shorter shoot. There is something quite nice about that. But again, I mean, Adrian's the one who was really there every single day. So I imagine for him, he must have been exhausted.
Yeah. Obviously, Brady sort of was an actor, of course. I remember seeing him in a few bits and bobs over the years. He's made this kind of move into directing seamlessly. Is that something you've ever kind of considered for yourself one day? Or just getting into kind of producing and that sort of stuff? Have you got a kind of long-term idea of doing stuff behind the lens?
Yeah, I love the idea of trying to find stories to tell more from and build them more from the ground up. Directing wise, I don't know, but yeah, maybe one day I'd love to try and make a short, possibly, and I do, yeah, I do like the idea of writing, but I mean, at the moment, acting, but we'll see.
I mean, the acting in this is incredibly special. I mean, not to get too deep into kind of spoiler territory, but there's obviously there's a remarkable scene where Felicity kind of interrupts a kind of dinner party. As actors, you know, you're always shooting challenging and kind of emotionally driven sequences. But what's the mood on set on a day like that? When Brady shouts kind of cut, is everyone able just to go, right, cool, let's go for a drink. Let's sort of, you know, just go and sort of chill for a bit. Or is there a kind of period where you all sort of have to kind of come down from a kind of an intense scene like that?
No, it was just exciting. It's exciting when you do something like that, and particularly the way he made it, because it's that scene in particular, because it's all in one take for 6 or 7 minutes. They're like these little pieces of theatre. They're not chopped up and fragmented, and so getting to do it, I forget how many times we did it. We did it, I don't know, seven times or something. But there's an adrenaline rush in getting to the end of something like that and feeling like that it went relatively well. And no, I think everyone had a bit of a buzz after it. Yeah, yeah, I'm sure we went and got a drink.
And am I right in thinking as well, just looking at sort of kind of upcoming projects, that both they've got kind of Hamlet related stuff on your horizon. There's a kind of modern London adaptation, and obviously the story behind how the play came to be, with Chloe Zhao. I mean, that must be a play you've grown to know quite well since with these projects.
Yeah, it's a lot of ham. There's both of them. There's Hamlet, which is directed by Anil Karia, who's amazing, starring Riz Ahmed playing Hamlet, and then Hamlet is a Maggie O'Farrell book, which Chloe Zhao has directed. And I'm now done with Hamlet for a while.
Just very quickly before I go, because I just wanted to ask, because I know I've seen some of the other actors kind of give their advice, but that it is a tense film, and I needed that kind of intermission. But what's your advice then for people during that little break? A quick wee, a shot of tequila, or sort of deep contemplation in the seat. How do you spend that kind of 15-minute period?
Maybe all three. Maybe all three. Yeah, it's nice. It is nice that there's space to kind of think and breathe after what's quite an intense first half. Yeah, always a drink at the interval. That's my recommendation.
What I did. Thank you so much for your time today, Joe. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you. And I'm speaking to Adrien and Felicity and Guy next week.
Oh,
So
great. Great.
What a
Thank
great
you.
film you guys are sitting on.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey